Today, I want to talk a little bit about Ernest E. Evans, the new American destroyer commander that can be obtained by completing the ongoing calendar event. He's more or less designed for the new alternative destroyer line. You see one of those on the screen in front of you, the legendary tier U.S. destroyer Burroughs, which is the pinnacle of the new line, and one that you can technically obtain this update if you are able to acquire a boat load of indipendium, which I'm sure you'd have to pay real money to get all of it needed for burrows. Wouldn't recommend it. I don't like paying for early access things, especially in a line that is literally going to be available in the next update for August. None of the lower tech tree ships, I probably wouldn't go for those unless, you see them in one of the random bundles early on and get lucky. You're going to be able to get all of them for free in August. I don't know if that's true of Burrows. I don't think the patch notes say that after this update, it will become a free bureau project. So, I wouldn't count on that, but I also wouldn't pursue it because I think you're going to have to pay a lot of money to get it. However, the calendar event is free to complete, and the commander, I would definitely recommend him. Now, I would show you the build on the commander, but I honestly can't remember exactly what build I was running on the burrows. There's so many different combinations that you can choose from that I think I just want to list all of his unique skills and talk about what each one does. But I also want to talk about the gimmick that the alt US line is based around, namely the advanced radar. And we'll be able to see some examples of that in this battle. This was actually the very first battle I played in Burrows. I played a few more since then, but I don't think I'm ready to quite review the ship entirely. I just want to talk about the advanced radar gimmick and Ernest E. Evans. Although I think in this battle we will get a lot of good damage, and this initial sequence here is pretty much perfect, where we can go around the cap. The enemy doesn't necessarily know where we are. I think we're maybe in radar range of the Salem, but he's never going to radar us. And we just get to have these guys broadsides and deal a lot of damage with the torpedoes and I think eventually the main battery guns. Anyway, let's talk about the advanced radar, and we'll talk about it specifically on the Burrows. This will be a little bit different for the lower tier ships on the line, like for example, the tier 8, I believe it's called Christopher. Yeah. Its radar only has a 9-kilometer range, and I know only a 9-kilometer range, right? Well, Burroughs has got 10, so there's going to be a little bit of differences. This is obviously going to be the most powerful version of it on the legendary tier ship. So we got a 10-kilometer range, but we've only got a 12-second base duration. Now that can be buffed with one of Evans' unique skills. I have that skill running, and I think I did in this battle. With that skill in place, the duration increases from 12 seconds to 13.8, so it's not exactly impressive. But again, 10-kilometer range, unlimited charges on this radar, and the cooldown time is 142 seconds, so like 2.5 minutes or so. Quite a long time, but you can use the radar on cooldown, technically. And if you take a look at the minimap, that green line spinning around the ship, that's the advanced radar. You see how it revealed a green dot somewhere behind the Kremlin? That is the unspotted cruiser. The range of this green line is the same range as your radar, 10 km. I think it completes a 360-degree rotation in about 20 or 30 seconds. One of Evans' skills buffs the speed at which that thing spins around by a little bit, and I think I may be running that. But anyway, every time it sweeps around the ship, if it sees or if it goes over something that is undetected within your radar range, it will register on the minimap as a green dot. Now, it doesn't, of course, tell you what type of ship you're detecting with the advanced gimmick here. It just shows you that there's something within the radar. And, of course, that ship can move within 20 seconds, but probably not all that far. And so if you're paying attention to the minimap, you can keep a good beat on them, and you can guarantee that something is in your radar range whenever you see that. It's almost like you have double stealth radar. Now, of course, the concept of stealth radar is very simple. The Burrows obviously has it. It just means that your ship's detectability is lower than the range of your radar. So every time you're spotted, you can guarantee that if you deploy the radar, you're going to spot something in return. You've got that going for you on the Burrows and on this new line, but then you've also got this gimmick that will show you for sure something is outside or inside of your radar range even when you're not spotted. So it's like double stealth radar. And I need to play this line a little bit more to really decide what I conclude about this gimmick. But I think potentially that is toxic, broken, and a little bit overpowered. I don't care that this thing spins every 20 seconds and ships can move in that time. The ability to know for 100% certain that you're not going to waste a radar and have to wait out the cooldown time is immensely powerful, in my opinion, especially when you have the ability to know that without being spotted and risking damage first. That's my first impressions of the gimmick anyway, and we're going to use it to good effect a little bit later on in this match against an enemy destroyer. So I think potentially this is not great for the overall balance of the game. I don't think it's great to put radar on destroyers with smoke screens to begin with, but we've already seen that with the Pan-European line, so it's not like that's totally new with this one. Just this advanced gimmick is new. And again, you can tell me that the duration is really short, so it's not all that useful. Spotting a destroyer at all, having any intelligence data on it at all, is immensely useful if you're trying to win games and you're playing a destroyer yourself. A lot of the destroyer gameplay is trying to figure out where the other thing is, and that's a lot less ambiguous with a gimmick like the advanced radar. Now, for Earnest Evans himself, I want to talk about all of his unique skills. We'll start with the base trait. It's called the Chief, and keep in mind I've got this guy ranked out fully maxed 16-4, so these are the max values of all these skills. This base trait, the Chief, increases destroyer HP by up to 8%. So there's that, I suppose a little bit of extra survivability. And then in his first row of skills, he's got two of them that are on a lot of destroyer commanders. Quick Fix, which of course allows for reduced mobility with a disabled engine, and you can substitute Quick Fix for the legendary skill Unstoppable to take a different legendary skill, which we probably would do with this build. He's also got No Fly Zone in his first row, and of course that just buffs the AA damage. Conventional skill, you've seen it before. The unique skill in the first row is called Beacon. What it does is increase the chance of destroyer HE shells and bombs, even though we don't have any bomb-dropping destroyers yet. It increases the fire chance of those by 3%, fully maxed. It increases incoming fire dispersion for enemies shooting at your ship by 4%, and it decreases the torpedo reload launcher time by 4%. Also shows you a warning indicator for the number of enemy ships currently targeting your ship with their main batteries, much like the Ingenious Cruiser skill. That can, of course, be useful, too, because if you're spotted and aimed at by an enemy destroyer, and then you suddenly see that number 1 for one ship aiming at you disappear, good indication that the destroyer has launched torpedoes in your direction, because that number only shows up for that skill when somebody's aiming at you with their main battery guns. And you have access to that on this line with the Beacon skill. In the second row, his unique skill is called Punching Up. This one is really interesting. When fully maxed, it increases the destroyer AP shell penetration multiplier by 15%. So that's a 15% penetration buff on AP that is already really good on this line. Burrows, for its part, I'll just tell you, the AP has a maximum AP shell damage of 3,400, which is huge. And then at point blank range, this has got 411 millimeters of penetration with that skill active. That's a lot of pen. That's going to get through like heavily armored cruiser Citadel belts, potentially, in Citadel them. Then on top of that, it's got a minimum ricochet angle of 60 degrees and a guaranteed ricochet angle of 67.5. Really improved pen angles on the AP. So you got that skill for the 15% pen bonus, but then it also says this, and the wording of this is weird. Maximum change to destroyer main battery shell damage against saturated hit locations, scaling with saturation level, 10%. What I take that to mean is that when a ship part starts getting saturated, you start doing more damage to it when you've got this skill active, up to a total of 10%, depending on how saturated it is. Basically, fully saturated, you get a 10% buff to the damage you're doing. That's probably not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I mean, that would certainly help you deal a little bit more damage with the main battery guns. Then in the third row, you've got a choice of two unique skills. Number one, in harm's way. This increases the speed of the advanced radar passive effect sweep by 2 degrees per second. I think maybe the base spinning time is 30 seconds for a 360-degree sweep, and then this buffs it to maybe 25, or maybe it's 25 and this buffs it to 20. I'm not quite sure. You can see it there again, revealing the location of the SOM on the mini-map. We know it's the SOM, even though it doesn't tell us it's a destroyer, because that's all it could be. It's certainly not the battleship, and the other destroyer was on the other side of the map. Anyway, this makes that sweep go faster. It also decreases destroyer main battery reload time while you're detected by 4%, and buffs the radar duration by 15%. That's how we get from the base 12 time to 13.8. The other skill is called Picket Station. It increases destroyer damage to an enemy ship's superstructure, bow, and stern by 5%, and gives you an extra consumable charge of everything, so you could get up to 4 smokes and 4 charges of the DFAA. And then in the fourth row, we've got a skill called Tin Can Sailor, perhaps the most mild of all of them. It increases the torpedo speed by up to 8%, increases torpedo damage by up to 5%, and reduces torpedo range by 8% as a trade-off. And then finally, in the legendary row, we've got the Evil Sparks skill, which only existed on one commander prior to this. I believe Tanaka, or not Tanaka, I can't recall his name right now, but the gunboat IJN commander, Kurita. That's who's got it. It, of course, buffs the armor penetration of your HE shells by 75% and decreases the HE damage by 20% to compensate for that. So I think that means you could get Burrows and this line penning up to 32 millimeters of armor with their HE, but I don't know that I would want to take it because the HE damage on Burrows is 2,200 apiece. I don't know that I'd want to reduce that because the reload time is relatively slow. It's got a base reload time of 7 seconds. And so I don't think with that sort of lack of fast DPM, you necessarily want to cut down on the HE alpha because I think you need it to deal good damage to destroyers. The unique skill, though, that he's got is called Final Stand. This thing, I'll just read to you what it does. Maximum projectile damage bonus for your destroyer against enemy ships with higher max HP, 12%. HP difference to reach maximum damage bonus, 200%. So if you're shooting at something with more HP than you do up to 12% more damage to it, is what I take that skill to mean. But also its special effect. When your destroyer is at less than 50% HP, it provides a 10% buff to your AP shell damage, HE shell damage, and SAP damage. So between all of these unique skills and all the various rows, there's a number of combinations you can choose from to build this new destroyer line. You might even try putting Evans when you get him on some of the original American destroyers. I mean, the radar skill's not really going to help you there, but things like buffing the AP pen, buffing the fire chance, buffing the torpedo speed and damage, the final stand skill, all of that could be really interesting for the original American destroyer line. And if we ever get the USS Forrest Sherman or the USS Hull, this commander might be really interesting on both of them. I suppose the good thing about this commander is that he is technically free for everybody to obtain, so that's nice to see. You just have to complete the calendar event in order to do it. And I believe, well, the calendar event essentially requires playing at least one match on a daily basis. I believe if you can't quite swing that, you can uh, get for free up to 3 days that you missed. And then beyond that, if you miss a couple of days, you probably have to throw a couple doubloons at it. But I would try my best to complete this calendar event. I think the commander is absolutely worth it. Seems like he's going to be really interesting on this line. And this gimmick that they've got seems to me like it's really powerful, really potent. And the burrows, for its part, I mean, again, this was my very first battle that I played in it. Nearly 160k damage done, 3,000 base XP, little bit of a blowout, but I mean, pretty good results in the burrows. So I think it's probably a pretty strong ship. I assume the rest of the line is the same way. I'll try to review them as I go. This is not really a review of the burrows, just wanted to tell you about the gimmick and the commander. So I hope you found this information useful and interesting. If so, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.